Some of you are still coming in, but we warmly welcome, enthusiastically greet each of you to the opening session of our annual university conference here at Brigham Young University. I had worked most of the week on good weather, and then just in the nick of time, read something yesterday that allowed me to make quick changes. It is one of the secrets of nature, in its mood of mockery, that fine weather lays a heavier hand on the mind and heart of the depressed and the inwardly tormented than does a really bad day with dark rain sniveling continuously and unsympathetically from a dirty sky. I don't know what I'd have done if I hadn't read that. And I was able to get a quick change, and while I wouldn't call Utah County skies dirty, at least they can snivel a little. As we gather here, I have alerted both the Pleasant Grove and Payson fire departments. They stand at the ready and will be alerted if we need to move from the building. We especially welcome those to our gathering. I'm buying time for some of you to still make your way to your seats. We especially welcome this morning those who are new to the university family this year. We want you to feel instantly loved and deeply appreciated as you settle into your work here at BYU. Please feel at home, and please take the opportunity to make yourself known to us as easily and quickly as possible. We do look forward to meeting with both old and new colleagues in some of the more personal contacts that will be afforded us in the days and weeks ahead. In that marvelous category of old friends, that's in quotation marks, we eagerly acknowledge today the attendance of many of our former colleagues now retired. This will always be your university. We will always invite you and hope you can come to these activities, and we thank you and are thrilled when you can join with us in this or any other BYU convocation. We also warmly welcome today's spouses, other family members and friends who may be with us this morning. We're grateful when personal and family schedules can allow you to be with us. You are most important to our work and certainly most important to our sense of community. And we thank you for the support that you so generously give us. We want our association on this campus to be the best of all possible professional opportunities. And we thank you, one and all, for your attendance here today. Now, sheepishly, having greeted you, I need to confess to all of you. I stand before you a repentant and shamed man. I have made not one but two severe mistakes in recent months. I do faithfully testify that one's transgressions will be found out, and that the rebellious shall be pierced with much sorrow, for their iniquities shall be spoken upon the housetops, and their secret acts shall be revealed. I, who have systematically carved out a reputation for corpulence and a sedentary life, I, who, like Abe Lemon of the University of Texas, resisted jogging because, said he, when I die, I want to be sick. I, who have done more to set back physical fitness than anyone in recent BYU memory, it is I whose name and photo were splashed across newspaper headlines and electronic media as one grabbed, as it were, in the very act by the divine hand of retribution, those are uppercase, playing a little early morning racquetball. Pain, anguish, hospitals, surgery, crutches, cast, humiliation. How does one live this down? A little perspiration here, a little competition there, squeezing by over the years with just as much as I thought I could stand and as little as I thought heaven would tolerate. And then it's over. One day I've gone too far, and a lifetime's reputation is shattered before me. Couldn't this have been a slightly more private rebuke? Couldn't this have been handled on some low-key basis? Oh, no. There is nothing which is secret, save it shall be revealed. There is no work of darkness, save it shall be made manifest in the light. Was it such a terrible thing? I'm still limping. Will I ever walk again? In return for a healed Achilles tendon, would it be enough to promise you or anyone that I will never physically exert again so long as the sun shines or the rivers run to the sea? And if that weren't enough, we have a plane wreck, seated on the ground in the first class section. Now, can there be a more embarrassing combination than that? Contrary to rumors being spread by my colleague Art Bassett, the first class upgrade was a freebie, a courtesy, an unexpected gift from the airline company. Not $1 of tithing appropriation was used, not a cent of university money expended. There we were, eagerly looking around back in steerage, where all BYU personnel are to travel. When we are for this trip unexpectedly invited to the head of the table, we thought, this is it, the book shall be opened, the last shall be first class, and all of that. Then the hand of retribution, once again. We're blissfully enjoying our unaccustomed spaciousness when a nearby 747 is dispatched to ram us. I don't mean just ram the airplane, I mean ram us. It was as if some great air controller in the sky said, they are seated in first class. Get it? First class. They'll be reading about this back in Provo. If we work it just right, we can knock them silly without touching one other passenger on the plane. And the plane doesn't have to leave the ground. It will take skillful navigation to hit their seat and their seat only, but we believe it can be done. Good luck. This tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds. Anonymity? A private reconciliation of one's sins? Oh no. It's from the housetops again. Well, believe you me, I'm no slow learner. I get the picture. Upgrades or no upgrades, it's back into steerage for me. And I'm just grateful that such strict BYU budgeting policies would be confirmed right at the top, so to speak. And I thank you for hearing these confessions, for the absolution that I know you have now given. I am a truly repentant man. This is our official beginning of a new school year. And even with a cloud in the sky, the beauty of the morning is a marvelous omen, I think, of the good experiences, the great privileges that are in store for each of us in the days and weeks ahead. The lightning last night was just a little early. I had arranged it for those who try to leave the building, but a little slip here and there. Nevertheless, the joy of these annual events come around. In fact, all annual events seem to come around at an exhilarating rate these days. But maybe that's supposed to be part of the fun of growing old. In any case, there is something wonderfully renewing and exhilarating about the start of a new school year together here at Brigham Young University. Perhaps the thrill is in the season. I understand that. I think with the smell of fall in the air, I noticed as I drove home from a church assignment yesterday that colors are already turning higher up the mountain. That hint of autumn in the air, I suppose, will add something to the excitement of our return. But there's also another kind of thrill, obviously, that always awaits us. It is the chance, I think, to once again see, quote, a curious child who dwelt upon a tract of inland ground, applying to his ear the convolutions of a smooth-lipped shell, to which in silence hushed, his very soul listened intensely, and his countenance soon brightened with joy, for from within were heard murmurings, whereby the monitor expressed mysterious union with its native sea. Forgive a little Wordsworthian rhapsody this morning, but surely along with the passing of summer and the promise of fall, and the mountain beauty of our setting, there is also that renewing contact, if you will, with a curious child. That is part of what we feel when school begins. That unequaled experience of finding one stranded on inland ground, as some of you found me, then through spiritual and imaginative and intellectual exercise, leading her or him to mysterious union with that ever so distant sea. That such exploration is possible, indeed essential, right here in landlocked Provo, surely must be part of what we feel at the beginning of an academic year. One of the most gifted but least traveled poets in our language, not Wordsworth this time, wrote, "Exultation is the going of an inland soul to sea, past the houses, past the headlands, into deep eternity. Bred as we among the mountains, can the sailor understand the divine intoxication of the first league out from land?" Now we welcome you to what I pray will be the divine intoxication of another year at BYU. It is, after all, the only intoxication we allow. So we encourage you to drink deeply. Our theme for this year's conference, as Commissioner Cameron has noted, and as you have read on your program, is taken from the book of Job, and was, as with all Scripture, the context is vital to the meaning and appreciation of any extracted phrase or line. By the time we join him in the 28th chapter of his book, Job has already suffered the terrible reverses that have cost him his health and his prosperity and most of his family. His boils are only the outward sign of his inner grief. He wonders why he didn't die in the womb, or at least in this time of terrible affliction. His comforters give scorn rather than consolation, and he wrestles with the realization that sometimes the wicked prosper in this life, while the righteous are allowed to suffer. He's weary of life, but somehow his faith in God is unshaken. He is still confident that sometime, somewhere, justice will be served. With nearly a last gasp, he utters, "Till I die, I will not remove mine integrity from me. My righteousness I hold fast, I will not let it go. My heart shall not reproach me, so long as I shall live." A sadder but wiser Job then asks our question of the morning. Where shall wisdom be found then? And where is the place of understanding? He admits through the lessons he has learned that man does not know the full price he may have to pay for wisdom and for understanding. Clearly, it cannot be purchased, he says, with gold or silver or onyx or sapphire. It cannot be purchased with coral or pearls, and the price of wisdom is above rubies. Whence then cometh wisdom, he repeats, and where is the place of understanding? God only understands the way thereof, he concludes, and he alone knoweth the place thereof. For he looketh to the ends of the earth, and seeth under the whole heaven. And unto man he hath said, Behold the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to depart from evil, that is understanding. As we begin another year together, my prayer for each of us is exactly what it has always been, and I suppose always will be for as long as I am asked to serve with you. In a world that is often, perhaps too often, beset by the vicissitudes of poverty and wealth and war and worries, in a time when comforters don't comfort, and terror too often takes hold of things, when the wicked sometimes do seem to prosper, while the righteous often wait in vain, my prayer is that Brigham Young University will be part of Job's faithful answer to such concerns. That we who gather here today and start another year together will truly be a source of wisdom in such a world, and that our campus will be a place of understanding. Such a lofty social and spiritual goal does require reverence for God and the forsaking of evil, but there's nothing new in that idea. At least it is not new to us. But to a younger generation, an incoming class of students each year who probably have not thought much about Job's questions, it may well be quite a new idea. That unequaled chance for an increasingly learned and wiser generation of believers to help a younger, newer one past the pitfalls of mortality toward the full realization of human potential. That is, quite simply, my psalm of joy, if you will, for us today. I do wish us to be a city set upon a hill, a place of learning and wisdom and faith for all to see. I wish us to teach and to defend and delight in the truth. I wish us to be a light shining, however dark the night. My righteousness I hold fast and will not let it go. My heart shall not reproach me so long as I shall live. Now, I'm reluctant lest all of that sound too bleak or Job-like on such a beautiful morning at the start of a great new school year. But it is true that often in every age, truth is forever on the scaffold and wrong forever on the throne. And we continue to struggle with such ironies even in the enlightened 1980s. The cover of a recent national news magazine observed that assaulted by sleaze, scandals, and hypocrisy, America is searching for its moral bearings, close quote. A slightly more literate quarterly publication simply proposed that we are currently a nation without honor. The names and diversities of recent events against Job's brand of integrity are now so long they've simply, for me, gotten confusing. Was it Gary Hart and Fawn Hall, or was it Jessica Hahn and Michael Deaver? Ivan Boesky was trading something. Was it arms for hostages or a fake blessing given to Joseph Smith III? And which are the good Marines and which are the bad? Were the call girls in the Russian embassy or the recreational theme park? Are the Afghan pyramids in Egypt? And was it a PTL boat that landed in Nicaragua? Or do I have Tammy Baker mixed up with Howard? Forgive me if I seem to grope here. But it can be different at Brigham Young University. It really must be different here. We have a chance. We have a chance, especially when measured against such cultural chaos and personal dismay. We really do have a chance to make a difference. We can be a light in a dark place. I don't mean this perennial hope of ours, this dream of inspired and inspiring education, to come across as breastbeating or cheerleading. I don't even mean it to sound like a new idea. I am told that when Pythagoras established the theorem of the square upon the hypotenuse, he sacrificed 1,000 oxen to Apollo in appreciation for that new revealed truth. Since then, whenever anyone has had a new idea, oxen everywhere have trembled. I don't want anyone trembling, because certainly the place of a university, especially Brigham Young University, is not new to anyone. You already know of my love for John Masefield's tribute, paid out of the dark debris of World War II's destruction in Europe. There are few earthly things more beautiful than a university. They give to the young in their impressionable years a bond of the lofty purpose shared, or a great corporate life whose links will not be loosed until they die. For us, it's longer than that. They give young people that close companionship for which youth longs, and that chance for the endless discussion of things which are endless, without which youth would seem a waste of time. In these days of broken frontiers and collapsing values, when the dams are down and the floods are making misery, when every future looks somewhat grim and every ancient foothold has become something of a quagmire, wherever a university stands, it stands and shines. Wherever it exists, the minds of men and women may still bring wisdom into human affairs. Close quote. I've shared that with you before, but I love it. Our times are not World War II times, and my message this morning is not intended to be any ceremonial moan about political mischief or dying whales or the advent of Armageddon. No, my message is just about what it's always been, as we've asked it together. Whence then cometh wisdom, and where is the place of understanding? And as we ask it and try to answer it for ourselves, we always have the ever-renewing opportunity to ask it and answer it with a new generation of students. How can BYU better stand and shine, to use Masefield's phrase? What do we owe to our students, these young men and women, who are, as they have always been, the embodiment of the future strength and its only hope of redemption? What can BYU do to make a difference in a world we wish to improve? To try and address such large and ever-present issues, I wish to speak broadly of three very basic tasks, the conclusion of which, I hope, will bring us back to some of the more personal aspects of Job's quest, the ones we have here been discussing. These three basic responsibilities which face us, responsibilities which I reviewed with all university administrators last June, are as old as BYU is old. Older than that, I am confident. A review of them won't prepare us to tilt at any windmills, but it might remind us of what a rare and influential work we can do in reinforcing and refining these thousands of human lives which walk onto our campus each year, and they are out there now, standing at the gates. These three tasks constitute the most fundamental work of the university, the first applying very broadly to every one of us, and the other two slightly more focused on our faculty. Of necessity, and as always, these preschool remarks will pursue the central academic mission of the university, even though I fully realize that not everyone on our support staff and administrative team gets such direct contact with our students. Nevertheless, I've told all of you before what I firmly believe to be true, that the opportunity to be at BYU in any capacity, by definition, makes all of us teachers in our own way. Certainly all of us must be interested in the charted course of the institution. So I don't apologize for speaking about our educational work, even though I know that a host of groundskeepers and cooks and carpenters are present. The president of General Motors talks a lot about automobiles, and the president of IBM talks a lot about computers. They, too, have a wide variety of people helping directly and indirectly in those tasks, just as all of you contribute to the learning opportunity of a legion of BYU students. So if you see yourself in a slightly more supportive role than in a direct classroom assignment, welcome to the family. That's exactly how I have to see myself most of the time. I invite each of you to consider today, as we discuss as many matters as we can, how your good work, whatever the range or nature of that service be, how that good work may represent and fit with the broad, healthy BYU definition of educator, which can include us all. The three major responsibility for those who join us in our university work here are faithful citizenship, strong teaching, and solid scholarship. I confess that I am amazed, often dismayed, at how abrasive some within the university family can make this three-part relationship. Some seem to make an arbitrary choice among the three, pitting one against the other, or somehow insisting that to pursue one faithfully really is to require abandoning another totally. I will try to be as clear as I can be regarding my position on these matters, because they are so essential to any success we hope to have personally or professionally, with young or old, at home or abroad. I've pled from the beginning of my term here, and I'm pleading now, for the kind of university colleagues who understand the highest and the best aspects of BYU's mission, and are willing to pursue and defend and encourage and reward all three elements of fundamental work at the university: good citizenship, good teaching, and good scholarship. To the faculty I say, please do not choose sides, particularly on the teaching and scholarship axis, as to which one is more important than the other. Please do not make that an either-or. I've heard too much of that at BYU. We can and we simply must have both. Our individual strengths are not identical, and none of us is perfect. Indeed, the quality of the university depends in part on the diversity of our experience and the diversity of our professional interest, but all the more reason for standards and ideals against which to measure some growth and some success. I readily acknowledge, as I said in a recent memo on this subject, that one person will be more effective than another in a particular teaching setting. Someone else will be especially imaginative and productive in some aspect of research. And all of us have to exemplify and then teach our student body good citizenship as ultimately defined by the gospel of Jesus Christ. I think it is fair to say that one who simply does not assume any responsibility for or commitment to one or more of these areas of university obligation does not understand our work or our mission, and probably won't be very comfortable at BYU. However, it is very understandable that a candidate who has a good, strong performance in at least one area of such responsibility, and at least acceptable performance in the others, will undoubtedly find a place here, and with time, improve his or her overall contribution to the university, as each of us hopes to do. We're certainly willing to believe that and work with you toward that end. Of course, it would be ideal to have everyone wonderfully exemplary in all three areas. That probably isn't going to happen very often, but it happens pleasantly enough that we can dream of it. We can ask for it, and we can hope for it in the rest of us. In any case, we can certainly stop talking like these are mutually exclusive tasks, or worse yet, some kind of brutally antagonistic adversary in university life. They clearly are not that. These three reinforce each other, and we will continue to ask for people to believe that. It will take some stretching and reaching and growing by us all, but at BYU, our reach should exceed our grasp, or what's the university for? Let me just use a very homely analogy from church life that obviously everyone will understand. The mission of the church has recently been divided into three separate components: to proclaim the gospel, to perfect the saints, and to redeem the dead. Now, I know young couples who are very missionary-minded who don't do a lot of genealogy work yet. And I know a few women who are wonderful in Relief Society homemaking lessons who wouldn't dare ask golden questions. And I know quite a few men who go to the temple faithfully, but who may not teach the gospel in their homes quite as formally as they might. None of us is perfect. But having said that, I add quickly that neither are the church and its gospel purposes well served if we say one of the three aspects of this large general church mission doesn't really matter, or perhaps that I'll do my own thing and somebody else can cover the rest. Granted, none of us can do everything, but in these three basic areas of Christian life, I believe each of us is expected to do something. Specializations will develop, skills will differ, interests will change, but each of us is to be whole, or holy, if you prefer, with at least some basic commitment to each of these three church areas of responsibility. Now, that's a very homely and almost needless example that I don't suppose anybody in the room really needed, but maybe it can cast some new light on what, for a few, is a controversy at BYU. I want us to come to some reasonable meeting of the minds on a balanced, appropriate, adequate emphasis on all three university tasks. These next few moments will be devoted to a discussion of them. The matter of university citizenship, especially as based upon and measured by the gospel of Jesus Christ, is one that by definition touches every one of us and has the most obvious meaning for those earlier noted issues of values and virtues of ethical and moral behavior we noted. Our students don't always behave as they ought, and at 18 or 22, they haven't always seen the bill which inevitably comes due on moral compromise. I want to talk to them again about honor and honesty and virtue and truth this fall. Indeed, I hope to introduce and encourage something of a university-wide conversation on such issues. The times seem uniquely right for that. This kind of in-house discussion is off the record, I suggest here this morning, if the press is present. But we simply have too many who come to this campus who believe that if their hair is groomed and their clothing clean, which we still want, by the way, they have somehow met their nominal obligations to honor, and then are free to cheat on exams through the week and fornicate with abandon over the weekend. I don't know what the numbers are, and I'm confident we're talking about a relatively small fraction of an army of otherwise strong and faithful, and I believe genuinely good young people who come here. But any who cheat or steal or otherwise compromise is too many at BYU. Indeed, Mr. Wordsworth, the world is too much with us, and it gets closer every year. We have an immense educational task on our hands at an age and in a time in their lives when young men and women are largely finalizing what it is they will become. So I'm back on the record if anybody cares. That concern for our students next Monday leads me to you, to me, here today. We are the host society, and we're the permanent residents of Brigham Young University. We must provide the ideals of citizenship, which can be both displayed to and expected of these young people. There will be no others to provide it. And what is that ideal university citizenship? Well, I think a true citizen of the university cares about and understands our religious tradition, our heritage, our purpose here, what it is we've attempted to be at Brigham Young University for more than a century now. That citizen will have read and understood our written mission statement and undoubtedly added a great deal of personal meaning to it out of his or her own hopes of what we're trying to become. Above all, I believe a true citizen at BYU will accept responsibility for the success of our collective effort here. It isn't the administration this or the staff that or the faculty the other. It isn't student life here or wards and stakes there or the personnel office beyond. It isn't teaching versus research or religion versus science. In our marvelous time on the BYU stage, it is a unified, conscientious pursuit of the collective BYU effort that we seek, each doing his or her special part, including groundskeepers and cooks and carpenters, as well as secretaries and librarians and professors. The central ingredient in this kind of citizenship is the fundamental requirement of faith in the Lord Jesus Christ and the devotion to Christian character that such a faith implies. As J. Reuben Clark once pled with university personnel, please do not make your faith difficult to detect. All that we do and say must reflect love of God and fellow man and complete loyalty to the restoration of the gospel in this dispensation, including the church's ordained leaders. I realize that for most of our university family, this simply goes without saying. I'm preaching to the choir. We all do that a lot. Marvelously exemplary lives are lived among our number. They're represented in this room. I truly believe that no finer concentration of Latter-day Saints exists anywhere else in the world, and I underscore Commissioner Camen's comments on that. There simply is not a group like you anywhere, in or out of the church. But the issue of loyalty to our sponsoring church and its teachings will forever be central to this matter of citizenship and university purpose. So I am committed to repeating it anytime we speak of the mission of BYU and the hope we have for the quality of life that must exist here, for faculty, for staff, for administrators, and especially for our students. Our colleagues and our students should find it very easy to sense our devotion to the gospel and the church, which combine to give us this remarkable BYU opportunity. I suppose it isn't inappropriate to say here that the most difficult problems I live with in my office day to day are never really in the adequacy of our people as teachers or researchers. I guess I shouldn't say never, but seldom. Or as administrators or custodians or whatever. The only really truly serious problems that come and which require our greatest time unraveling and explaining are problems that strike at this matter of citizenship. Those cases in which someone in our university family, and I include in that definition our students, who seem to be at odds with church standards or church policies or church doctrines. Everyone expects better than that of us at BYU. Our Board of Trustees has been very generous with us, as generous as the tithes and offerings of the church can possibly allow. Indeed, sometimes when I consider the immense trust that the trustees place in the administration in these circumstances, I am very uneasy lest in any way we ever lose that confidence and therefore lose some of the great ground I feel we've gained at the university in recent years. And I am, from time to time, bludgeoned into the realization that everyone at the university plays a role in maintaining or damaging that trust. I bear the scar tissue from my own transgressions as well as that of others to prove that point. So it is in that sense that I consider citizenship much more than committee work or attendance at commencements or devotional assemblies, or the simply conscientious effort in the work we've each agreed to do, though all of those things are important and visible, and they are of real consequence. But I take the liberty of assuming that kind of citizenship in order to here talk about citizenship that reflects a commitment to the basic principles on which the university was established and which continues to mark its uniqueness and its distinction from all other universities in the land. Indeed, I don't know of any major university that now speaks of citizenship as a fundamental and basic review touchstone for considering salary increases, promotions, continuing faculty status, rank advancement, professional development leave, and a host of other opportunities at the institution. At least I don't know of any major university that's doing it the way we do it, or as seriously as we do it. And we've taken the matter very seriously, and we intend to do even more in rewarding good citizenship in the future as best we can. Now, with this idea of citizenship in a community, I confess I've never really liked the suggestion that the university, or much less its president, was an employer. I guess the university is an employer in the sense that it provides daily bread for some 7,000 full-time equivalent colleagues. But because we're a university with all the special relationship that implies, I would hope that one's labor here is truly a labor of love, pursued by choice, and is, as it is for me, the best possible place in all the world that we could imagine spending our working hours. I've said before that if we were intended to earn our living by the sweat of our brow, then there's no place on earth I would rather sweat than at BYU. I suppose what I'm saying is that much more than being an employee, a word I greatly dislike, I'm inviting every one of us, I'm inviting myself, to be a citizen, a part of the university's very soul. We don't need to recite John Donne here, but no one at BYU is an island. Ask not for whom the Carillon bell tower chimes, it chimes for thee. That kind of integrity and integration toward what we are about is the great hope I have in this matter of citizenship. No one has come here by coercion. No one is kept here by ball and chain. Every one of us has chosen this professional path because it's more appealing and attractive to us than any other we could imagine. At least I hope that's why we have. And that is the privilege and the premium on the good life at Brigham Young University. It is at the heart of university citizenship. Let me again quote from a recent memo I sent to the faculty on this matter, a memo that Commissioner Cameron has alluded to. Such responsibility for institutional life is very broad. If we approach our disciplines or our grooming in an unkempt or sloppy manner, then our students will be learning some carelessness and disorder from us. Students should see in every one of us, teachers, staff, administrators, whomever, the rigor, the order, the interest, the respect that comes with devoted professional commitment. Students should see in the lives of their teachers and all other university associates that we are women and men here committed to honor and integrity, to virtue and truth, to the gospel of Jesus Christ. Close quote. A university college who by disruptive behavior impedes the work of a department or a support area or a team of workers at the university is obviously not a very contributing citizen. That's not to suggest that good men and women will somehow agree on every point or policy or procedure here. We obviously won't. There should be and there will be strongly expressed positions, differing positions. But these should be expressed and responded to as would be expected from civilized, decent, educated people. Gossip, backbiting, insult, degradation of character really don't have any place at Brigham Young University. Neither have incessant jousting or indulgent theatrics. We are, because of our heritage and our mission, interested in the common good, the growth and development of everyone. That kind of care and concern will lift entire departments and agencies at the university by their very bootstraps. I've said before that BYU is one of the few experiments in Zion-like living that the modern church is able to undertake. This university is the only community of its size I know where so many people have chosen to live together for the common good, with the principles of the gospel and the religious covenants they have made as the ordering principle of their lives. If that is not an advantage to us in academic work, I do not know what is. I spend a great deal of my time with other university presidents who lament openly and with painful candor their inability to cross departmental or college lines or to break down the barriers of academic disciplines or simply to get people to be civil with each other within an area of university labor. What an advantage we have at BYU just in our brotherhood and our sisterhood. Our efforts to use these advantages properly have us on our way toward becoming what I believe we will one day be in response to President Kimball's charge, one of the great universities of the world, an educational Mount Everest. But we do have to have everyone's loyalty and contribution to succeed. I don't know much about mountain climbing, but I do know that we're roped together and that you have to climb with every other team member in mind. We need each other at BYU, and if we are to be a true community, academic or otherwise, we will need all of each other if we ever to wish to speak seriously of Zion. In those early efforts toward consecration and stewardship, the key was universal participation, and it broke down when universal participation was lost. This is what the Lord requires of every man in his stewardship, the Scripture says. None are exempt from this law, and who belong to the church of the living God. For a truly profound and powerful university community, obviously a great deal more is required of us than those isolated tasks which can too easily be labeled simply as teaching or research or cooking or computing. Ernest Boyer wrote in his recent book, College, The Undergraduate Experience in America, wrote this, and I quote, "The tension between individuality and community has been the central theme of our study. The college is committed on the one hand to serve the needs of individual students, celebrating its many forms and human diversity, encouraging creativity and independence, and helping students become economically and socially empowered. But a college of quality is also guided by community concerns. It has goals that are greater than the sum of the separate parts, and reminds students in formal and informal ways that there is an intellectual and social community to which they are inextricably connected. Is it possible for the modern campus, with all its separations and divisions, to find points of common interest? Difficult as it may be, we must find such common points. A quality college is guided by a clear and vital mission. The institution cannot be all things to all people. Choices must be made and priorities assigned. And there is, we believe, in the tradition of the undergraduate college, sufficient common ground on which shared goals can be established and a vital academic program built. Because students need guidance, a college of quality has a year-round program of academic advising and personal counseling, structured to serve all undergraduates, including part-time and commuting students. But is the faculty available to freshmen and to talk to them about their disciplines? And do faculty give guidance to young students as they consider choices for careers? I'm continuing his quote. Is the library more than a study hall? Are students encouraged to spend at least as much time with the library resources as they do in class? Are those who direct the library also considered teachers? Residential living can be one of the most chaotic parts of campus life, and yet it has the potential of being one of the most rewarding. Is it appropriate to ask, are residential halls not only a place for sleeping and parties, but also for education, with seminars, colloquia, and informal learning? It is our position that at a good college, students discover that all parts of college life are measured by high standards, and that educated people are guided in their behavior by civility and decency. Close quote. Now, each of us must continue to assess our own contribution and those for whom we have some responsibility in this basic and vital aspect of high professional standards coupled with worthy personal behavior. It is university policy for every one of us to have an hour's review with our file leader at least once a year. Such a review gives us an opportunity to evaluate that contribution and measure our progress. By the same token, the leaders of the university must find better ways to evaluate and assist the members of the BYU family who contribute to the spirit and atmosphere of honesty, integrity, morality, and respect and concern for fellow women and men here. Certainly every one of us at the university who is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and that's always about 98% of us, should be evaluated appropriately by his or her loyalty to our well-known and commonly accepted LDS standards. We must not ever play, and I will not ever play, an inappropriate quasi-ecclesiastical role in any such professional review and any relationship at the university. But because the institution is sustained by the tithes and offerings of the Latter-day Saint faithful, which Brother Ward so sweetly reminded us in his prayer, therefore none of us should be unclear about what is expected in our personal lives. So I don't think it should have anyone trembling over the square upon the hypotenuse to suggest that members of the BYU family are expected to represent the values and demonstrate the virtues of the church that makes the operation of this university possible. Indeed, the whole nation has recently been reminded by no less a body than the Supreme Court, in a rare unanimous decision, that churches have every right to ask of their various agencies and personnel the standards of conduct and behavior that are consistent with that church's sponsorship. For Latter-day Saints everywhere, it's just understood that we'll pay tithing and obey the word of wisdom and support our leaders and live lives of honor and compassion, and you know the list. If we are of an age and circumstance to have been to the temple, we should keep those covenants sacred and return there often. A temple and a university were always central to the prophet Joseph's vision of the city of Zion, and what didn't endure in Nauvoo is enduring in Provo. The light of the temple ought to shine on all we do here on our campus. In short, every one of us knows what it means to have chosen voluntarily a professional life at BYU. We have such a special mission to do all that the great universities of the world do, but to do some other things very well and to do them almost uniquely. That special added ingredient in our educational offering will come in significant measure from our environment, from the very ambience we have here for learning, from the lives of the men and women who gather together in this room. It can't be legislated. It can't even be fully expressed. It certainly won't come in just our clean grounds, and I'm wise enough to know it won't come in an administrative memo. It's finally in us, in you, in me, our people, committed Latter-day Saints, whose light casts a special glow. The spirit of the why, a place of wisdom and a place of understanding. My righteousness I hold fast and will not let it go. My heart shall not reproach me so long as I shall live. Till I die, I will not remove mine integrity from me. I will be inviting the entire BYU family to speak often of university citizenship in the weeks ahead, to help us find ways to acknowledge and reward it among ourselves, and to stimulate a better understanding of it among our young brothers and sisters, our students. It is so crucial to our ultimate success as a university if we are, of all universities, to stand and shine, as I believe we are destined to do. May I say just a word or two about teaching? I hear far too much recently that the administration or the university or someone, maybe Jeff Holland, I don't know, is abandoning the teaching role at BYU in deference to increased accomplishment in the area of scholarship. Please do not believe that or say it or permit it to be said. If one of you sees a department or a circumstance where that's a genuine problem, tell us, and I will certainly try to help correct it. But do not perpetuate an artificial antagonism between the two crucial ingredients of teaching and scholarship in our professional life at BYU. In case anyone is confused or unclear, I am stating unequivocally, as I recently did in a memo, that the university exists in order that students can be taught. I stand resolutely by President Kimball's charge to me in 1980. Quality teaching is a tradition at BYU never to be abandoned. It will never be abandoned here. BYU has always been a teaching institution. It is now a teaching institution, and it will always be a teaching institution. Furthermore, it is imperative that we teach well at Brigham Young University. A great teacher is one who is excited about learning and is learning something every day and every week and every month, which that teacher then takes into the classroom. That's part of what we're calling scholarship. That is a good deal of what we mean by such an ominous word as research. Surely no one believes we should all still be teaching from notes we scribbled down in graduate school. Good teachers will press themselves for new material, new approaches, new insights, new advantages, new access to young and impressionable minds. A great university teacher takes a student where she is and lifts her to newer heights. Takes an incoming freshman, and by the time he's a senior, has changed forever his vision of what the world of nature and art and experience holds for him in time and in eternity. Of course, good teachers will be very different from one another, not only in personality, but also in the technique of instruction used. However, just being odd or sensational does not generally make one an able teacher in the long run. Similarly, a good teacher is not necessarily good, even if on occasion a student rises to some degree of excellence in spite of poor instruction. A teacher whom the student sees as the enemy and who brings no spirit of helpfulness and encouragement to the class will be a failure in the eyes of most of his students. On the other hand, a teacher who seeks the favor of the students by setting easier requirements and giving inappropriately high grades cheats those young people out of what they might have learned, both in terms of the content of the class and the industry and independence which each should have developed there. A teacher who is habitually late, disorganized, poorly prepared, or uninterested in the progress of students surely cannot be considered a good teacher. A teacher who does not manage the class environment, who returns papers carelessly graded or late or not at all, who wastes class time with war stories or complaints about this or that or other bits of time consumption to offset a shallow lecture, that is not a good teacher. I think it is fair to say that we learn a great deal about a teacher's feelings from our conversations with and observations of that person. Surely no one can teach very well who dislikes the experience, dislikes the subject, dislikes the students, and dislikes the university. It seems to me a sad assignment when anyone has to be involved with such a person. Of such, Stephen M. Kahn wrote in his Saints and Scamps, Ethics in Academia, quote, "Once we recognize the extent to which students are necessarily dependent on their instructors, we realize how much harm faculty members can inflict. Which of us has not felt the sting of a teacher's thoughtless or malicious jibe, or been victimized by a teacher's carelessness or meanness, or developed a blindness or an aversion to some potentially fascinating subject as a result of a teacher's incompetent, boring, or aberrant presentation?" Close quote. That's a little harsh, but it's his. And this from a recent national report entitled "To Reclaim a Legacy." Just as students can be drawn to a subject by good teachers, they can be chased off by poor ones. Students come to learning through their teachers, and no list of great works nor any set of curricular requirements can do the work of a good teacher. Although it can take many forms, we all know what poor teaching is. It can be lifeless or tendentious, mechanical or ideological. It can be lacking in conviction. Perhaps most commonly, it can fail to have a sense of the significance of the material that it purports to study and to teach. It can bore and deaden where it was meant to quicken and elevate. Giving one example, Harvard professor David Reisman pointed out that poor teaching can masquerade as good teaching when it invites, and this is a quote, "students to join a club of sophisticated cynics who are witty, abrasive, and sometimes engrossing. Many teachers parade and glorify their eccentricities, and only on reflection and at some distance does one realize they were really lifeless." Close quote. In one crucial way, good teachers cannot be dispassionate. They cannot be dispassionate about the works they teach, assuming that they're teaching important works. This does not mean they advocate each idea of every author, but that they are moved and are seen to be moved by the power of the works, and that they're able to convey that power to their students. Just as good scholarship is inspired, so must good teaching be. Let me say a word about evaluating good teaching. I've said to my colleagues in the Academic Vice President's office, and I'm saying it repeatedly and openly here, that as difficult as it is, we must continue to find the very best ways to elevate and acknowledge and reward both good citizenship and good teaching, as well as good scholarship. Research is often more objective, sometimes more visible, more quantifiable, though I do not believe the quality of research is necessarily any easier to assess. But we do try to evaluate good research. And challenging as it may be, difficult as we acknowledge it is, good teaching can be evaluated too. And we must improve our ability to do so. Some of that evaluation may be by the students, some will be by peers, some will be by those serving in departmental or college administrative positions. Some of it, I would hope, might truly be constructive self-evaluation. But good teachers, able teachers, will not be fearful of the process, whatever form it takes, and will indeed invite and seek comment or counsel that might improve the quality of teaching. All of us have been touched by great teachers in our lives. Indeed, I suppose the real quality of our educational experience and the real milestones along that path are the milestones which mark the influence of inspired teachers upon us. That might have been at grade school or high school or undergraduate or graduate level, but they were teachers who changed something in us, perhaps a great deal in us, forever. I believe most faculty members at BYU maintain excellent relationships with their students. The eagerness with which graduating seniors bring parents to meet teachers at commencement is one of the many indications of this for me. But I'm disappointed to hear, and this really is an exception. I want that emphasized. In fact, as we discuss problems or challenges, they're almost always, by definition, exceptions, but perhaps we can all learn. There is an exception to the rule, and I do hear of some remarkably insensitive and blatantly unkind ways in which a few of our university family treat students. And the principle here is applicable to every area of university work. I'm not speaking only of faculty. This is staff, administrators, secretaries, presidents, everyone. Surely we can be civil and courteous in our contacts with students. Surely we can post and keep office hours. Surely we can open the door more than 3/16 of an inch when a student comes calling, seeking some help. Surely we can encourage women as well as men in the full range of our academic offering. Surely we can convey an attitude in class and out that the happiness and success of our work and our students is important to us, and that is why we're at the university. We have agreed in our own circle of offices that we will not send students with questions round and round through the revolving doors of BYU's complexity. If a student comes to our offices with a question, and it is not one we can or should handle, we hold the student while a phone call is made to whomever is the proper person on campus. We make an appointment if possible, or otherwise seek counsel of that person, and then send the students, plural, on their way, knowing they haven't just been given the runaround or been tyrannized by BYU bureaucracy. I know something about the demands on our time. Indeed, I think I know as much about that as anyone at the university. I know that some days are longer than others, and that we can't always be all things to all people. But a commitment to students, an attitude toward them, that our kindness will be expressed to them, that should be clear and obvious to all who would observe us. As I said earlier, a student is really the reason for the existence of this university. That young man or young woman is not an enemy, and clearly cannot be seen as a nuisance to be put up with, or an intrusion to be tolerated. Any associate at the university, faculty, staff, administrator, whomever, can take the time to speak with students, grant them appropriate audience during carefully regulated hours, and treat them with courtesy and respect. We need to say to our students, I love you, I care about you. This university values you, cares about you, you are important, you're a living child of a living God. If we're too busy for that, we're just too busy. The idea that somebody in student life, or somebody in the wards and the stakes, or somebody somewhere can worry about these students is so patently wrong on the face of it that I suppose it need not even be mentioned here and shouldn't be. And yet I hear of problems of this kind, few as they may be. Please, even as I am making a personal resolve to be closer to the students myself this coming year, including more time with them in my office and in my home as well as in my classroom, I ask you to take the special interest in them that is perhaps unique in all the world to the teacher-student relationship. And remember my broad definition of teaching. Speak with them. Help them. Help them with their problems. You don't have to be their bishop or their Relief Society president, but I do think we ought to be their brother or sister. Be sensitive and thoughtful. Remember that you were once a freshman or maybe even a senior, and that you've had some difficult days. We have a lot of students here who have a lot of difficult days. And if the image of a great teacher is to be what I think the image of a great teacher must be, it needs to reflect that humanity and gentleness and caring concern that marks not only a truly civilized person, but in our case, marks the true disciple of Christ. I am stressing here in this conference that we're committed to such teaching, that the student is in every way central to the university enterprise, and that we can and will find ways to evaluate and reward such good teaching. I pledge that, not only as a matter for continuing faculty status and rank advancement, but I pledge it for the general atmosphere and the quality of instruction that are essential to our concern for and commitment to the rising generation. If you have suggestions for us on this topic, I invite them. But I hope I've been clear and unequivocal about the strong, central, unwavering position of this administration on the value and desirability of superb teaching. Now, for the third and somewhat briefer of our three responsibilities, I speak of solid scholarship. A word that somehow seems to strike terror in the very heart of some. Perhaps this is an area where we've not communicated adequately. But I have just suggested that truly good citizens and truly great teachers at a university also understand the mission of the university and participate in the full range of its mission, including scholarship. Brigham Young University is a university. I've said before that we are not the Tabernacle Choir and we're not the Deseret Gym. We're not Beneficial Life Insurance and we're not KSL Radio. We're not even the LDS Business College. Worthy as all of those church-sponsored agencies are, their work is not exactly our work. We are to be a university. That involves a special and genuine commitment to growth and development and learning. We have to be alive to our disciplines, and we have to bring to our work the discipline, I use the word advisedly, of writing and subjecting our work to the constructive criticism of our peers, the sharing of our insights and our contribution with each other. It is not enough at BYU just to be a good person. There are good people everywhere, we hope, but to be worthy of our hire here, we must be good persons who do the work of a university in a first-rate way. Now, I am grateful for the example, to use an example, that people as unscholarly as Mormon and Moroni and Ether and Nephi wrote something down. I am grateful that Luke and John and Jacob and Paul put pen to paper on behalf of an audience that would not necessarily have reached me in my lifetime. I did not have a chance to sit at their feet, but heaven only knows the tears I have shed and the gratitude that I have expressed for the fact that they wrote what they knew. That kind of scholarship is inextricably linked with very great teaching, and I cannot imagine great teaching without it. Can that homely analogy be transferred to our university setting without excessive violence? In this way, perhaps it makes scholarship more easily seen as an essential activity of a university faculty. I detest the phrase publish or perish. That phrase has never been used by this administration, and I'm disappointed with those who use it against the growth of the university. But there is, I think every one of us would agree, a kind of self-imposed perishing that comes from stagnation, that comes from lack of new experience, that comes from stunted growth and dwarfed development. There is every evidence that at a university we just kind of grow old and poop out. Paul Thompson tells me that nationally that decline begins at the average age of 40. Unless we are involved in what President Kimball has charged us to do, namely, rolling back the frontiers of knowledge, our own knowledge, if no one else's. An excellent teacher wrote in a book, "When we seek legal counsel, we have a right to expect that our attorney is knowledgeable about the most recent and relevant court decisions published and is not relying solely on cases studied in law school. Analogously, students are entitled to assume that their instructor does not merely repeat stale ideas, but is able to provide an informed account of the most promising lines of recent thought in that field. A PhD signifies that as of the date awarded, the recipient has mastered a discipline. But the degree does not entitle the bearer to a lifetime exemption from scholarship. A professor, the root word for which is the same as profession, who depends on tattered yellow notes reflecting unchallenged and unrefined, time-worn thinking, is certainly as guilty of malpractice as the physician, who lies on antiquated and perhaps even now dangerous medical treatments. Both are ideal candidates for early retirement, close quote. That, too, is a little strong, but I suppose it's a point to be made. Please don't let that be threatening, and by the same token, don't use it as a bludgeon against your colleagues. I'm simply talking about the kind of LDS scholarship that has us devotedly at work in our discipline, the way the LDS work ethic would have us rolling back the frontier of anything, whether that be the Ohio or Illinois frontier, or an international mission field, or genealogical research. Latter-day Saints are not known as squatters. They move out and move up. At an LDS university, there really shouldn't be an inert intellect among us. Solid scholarship will always be a crucial ingredient in any assessment of a truly great Latter-day Saint university. Now let me conclude. Moving from our broad institutional hopes back toward somewhat more private ones. I began with reference to the sleaze syndrome in which we as a nation or world so often find ourselves. And I've tried to suggest that a university is a bright and beautiful response to that kind of aimlessness, especially Brigham Young University. Such a sense of mission was reaffirmed in a recent national report, and I quote, "Most students enter college expecting that the university and its leaders have a clear vision of what is worth knowing and what is important in our heritage, that all educated persons should know. They also have a right to expect that the university sees itself as more than a catalog of courses. Each institution must decide for itself what it considers an educated person to be and what knowledge that person should possess. While doing so, no institution should act as if it is operating in a vacuum. There are standards of judgment. Some things are more important to know than others. The choices of a college or a university makes of its own curriculum should be rooted firmly in its institutional identity and educational purpose. In successful institutions, an awareness of what the college or university is trying to do acts as a unifying principle, a thread that runs through and ties together the faculty, the curriculum, the students, and the administration. It's part of what we hope to do in a conference like this each year. Merely being exposed to a variety of subjects and points of view is not enough. Learning to think critically and skeptically is not enough. Being well-rounded is not enough. If, after all the sharp edges have been filed down, discernment is blunted, and the graduate is left to believe without judgment, to decide without wisdom, or to act without standards. The most phenomenal and least likely literary success of 1987 seems to be Alan Bloom's runaway bestseller, The Closing of the American Mind. The book and its success are, frankly, to me, something of a paradox. The rate at which it is being purchased and presumably read would almost seem to be evidence against Bloom's severe judgment about our decaying interest in life's large moral questions. It appears that someone is interested. I make no effort here to summarize the richness of the book, but I do share with you Professor Bloom's final assessment. It gives a link back to those several American moral blemishes with which we began these remarks. Our problems are so great and their sources so deep that to understand them, we need philosophy more than ever. I still believe that universities, rightly understood, are where community and friendship can exist in our time. Our thought and our politics have become inextricably bound up with the universities, and they have served us well, human things being what they are. But for all that, even though they deserve our strenuous efforts, one should never forget that Socrates was not a professor, that he was put to death, and that the love of wisdom survived partly because of his individual example. This is what really counts, and we must remember it in order to know how to defend university life. And then this closing quote. This is the American moment in world history, the one by which we shall forever be judged. Just as in politics, the responsibility for the fate of freedom in the world has devolved upon our regime, so the fate of philosophy in the world has devolved upon our universities, and the two are related as they never have been before. The gravity of our given task is great, and it is very much in doubt how the future will judge our stewardship. Close quote. Stewardship, I've tried to outline some of what I think ours is. At BYU, it is to be custodians of a precious ideal. At BYU, it is the pursuit of virtus et veritas, virtue and truth. At BYU, it is the work of a fully anointed university, a place of reason and revelation, a place of wisdom and genuine understanding. For us, education is not a handy knack, as someone suggested. It is a moral condition. The ability to read attentively, reflectively, and judiciously is equally the ability to be attentive, reflective, and judicious. For the sake of just and sane living, literacy is not an optional adornment. It is a necessity. It is the necessity. It is not a variety or portion of education. It is education. It is the whole thing, the wholesome nourishment of the mind, by which it may grow strong enough to be the master of the will and not its slave, the judge of desire and not its procurer, the censor of sentiment and not its tool, and the inquisitor of belief and not its flack. It is our only path to whatever wisdom we can have, which is our only path to whatever goodness we can know, which is our only path to whatever happiness we may enjoy. Close quote. That writer may lack some gospel perspective on the full range of wisdom and goodness and happiness available there, but he makes a wonderful point about true education, which I believe Latter-day Saints, best of all, can appreciate. The wisdom we can have, the goodness we can know, the happiness we can enjoy. I don't know that we're having any more heartache in our community than usual, but it certainly seems to me that we have a great many in our BYU family who've recently struggled, are now struggling with disappointment and disease and sometimes death. For obvious reasons, I won't name names or run through the directory, but we're close enough at BYU to know one another and to know the difficulties we often face. I'm sure that I'm not aware of everyone's pain, but I do know that in just one 4-day span just last week, we buried a colleague, the spouse of a colleague, the missionary son of a colleague, and a young recent member of one of our BYU stake presidencies. That in just 4 days' time, a week ago. We needn't go back many months, nor in some cases look ahead many months, to know of other losses and heartache that you've had. Just Friday, just 3 days ago, I learned of yet another fearful, fateful circumstance that seems to be facing one of our families. I don't mean any of this to be morbid or maudlin, but it does seem that we've had a great deal of it these past several weeks and months. And I don't know why in these last 2 weeks we've again been subjected, I guess perhaps necessarily so, back to back, if you will, to recounting the earlier horrors of the Hoffman murders and the Sharon Sant mutilation and the Hi-Fi tragedies. Those things brutally, horribly seem to stay with us, go on and on and on. I confess that the recent air disaster in Detroit has been almost constantly on my mind. I've thought about it inordinately, I confess, almost obsessively, and that's no great compliment. But I can't seem to strike from my inner eye the image of that young mother throwing her body over her precious child to shield the blow of impact and the certain searing flames about to come. As I have loved you, love one another. Although I wanted the humor to begin our conference this morning, I confess I found it a little difficult to joke about our recent experience coming back from the Middle East. I might well have been stepping down this morning, which thing I hope to do someday in any case, but which I surely would have had to do now if my dearest friend and closest advisor and patient, attentive guardian of my soul and mother of my children had been taken from me. A few inches, a little more wingtip in almost any direction. A great blunt knife slicing through the fuselage of a plane like a butcher attacks beef, and her life would have been taken, and surely my life would have been over. That is, even if I had lived. And when the tearing of metal stopped that afternoon in Vienna, I was not unmindful that the greatest air disaster in recorded history was from the aftermath of fire, when two 747s had collided on the ground, in very much the same way we had just been involved in identical planes. 600 people had burned to death that day in Tenerife, and at least 158 now haven't survived that tragedy in Detroit, where just this morning it's reported the child is asking for her father. The one survivor. I do not know the answer to such things. I do not know why they happen, or why some are taken and some are not. But I do know that God loves us all, and that we will all go sometime. I was touched by Elder Dean L. Larson's devotional address just Tuesday at Education Week, in which he acknowledged such intimations of mortality. Wondered whether for him there were enough time left to set right what needed to be set right and to do what conscience knew needed to be done. These recent events affecting so many on our campus have sobered and saddened me, and I confess given me some of the same thoughts. I said I do not know the answer to many of these things, nor why they come in just the way they do. I suppose none of us know. But I do know where ultimate peace and safety lie, regardless of when death stops to call for me. I believe in repentance and in ordinances and covenants and redemption. I believe in the gifts of God. I believe in the power of the Comforter, and I believe in Christ, who gave us all, the shepherd of our souls, the eternal Prince of Peace. Furthermore, I believe in praying for one another, because prayer is, among other things, a pure act of love, and love is perfect power, unequaled. How would you describe the act of someone kneeling 5 feet or 5,000 miles from another and asking for that person's comfort or for his personal safety or for her much-needed success? Would that best be called loving prayer? Or is it prayerful love? Or are such distinctions silly? I know only of its power. I have been the beneficiary in my lifetime, and that so very recently, of loved ones pleading past time and space for me, and so have each of you. I know too that many of you pray for me and for my family in the daily work of the university, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for such love. I want you to know that we surely pray for you. Prayer isn't all we need in matters of success or safety or sorrow, but it can do so very much when almost no other expression is adequate or available. A wonderful bishop, who himself had lost 2 children, said in one of these recent services, quoting St. Augustine, "One of God's children escaped sin, but none of God's children escape suffering." Job, we're not yet as Job. Sometimes the world is too much with us, but our love for one another and our loyalty to gospel truth can make our BYU experience yet again another year a unique source of wisdom, and this campus a very special place of understanding. May God bless you in this new school year. I pray and say, in the name of and with the love for our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.